Hello and welcome to another TLDR EU video. When you think of Spain and Spanish territory, a number of things inevitably come to mind. The Spanish mainland, maybe the Canary Islands, and at a push Gibraltar, although don't let the British hear you say that. What is unlikely to come to your mind though are the pieces of European territory on mainland Africa, the Spanish enclaves of Ceuta and Melilla. While these enclaves are normally kept out of the media spotlight, a recent diplomatic crisis has been brewing over the Spanish territory. So in this video, we'll take a look at what the spat is all about, and how we've even gotten to this point. If you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel to support the content we make and get yourself more of it. As with many overseas territories, the Spanish enclaves of Ceuta and Melilla are disputed to say the least. In 1415, Portugal seized Ceuta, and in 1497, Spain conquered Melilla. Then in 1688, as the union between Portugal and Spain dissolves, Ceuta becomes Spanish. And then in 1956, after Morocco gained independence, both Ceuta and Melilla remained Spanish territories, although they would be granted a degree of autonomy in 1995. Throughout that latter time though, Morocco believed that they had a claim to both Ceuta and Melilla, but it wasn't a claim they fleshed out very much, failing to make much of a case to the UN. Regardless, the sheer duration of Spain's control over the territories has largely made the issue moot when it comes to international law, but tensions have been rising again recently. The most recent dispute and the ensuing migrant crisis all started with the Spanish admission of Barham Ghali. Ghali leads the Polisario Front and is the president of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, a self-declared state also known as Western Sahara. Without turning this video into a history documentary, between 1884 and 1976, the area in question was under Spanish rule. The Madrid Agreement was concluded between Spain, Morocco and Mauritania, which transferred the powers and responsibilities of Spain as the administrating power of the territory to a temporary tripartite administration. Then in 1976, Spain informed the UN Secretary-General that it had terminated its presence in Western Sahara, relinquishing responsibilities and power, provoking a de facto power struggle over the region. The Polisario Front immediately tried to fill the power vacuum, and a war ensued, before a ceasefire was eventually agreed. Fast forward a few years, and Ghali, as the representative of the Polisario Front and Morocco, weren't exactly friends. Late last year, fighting between the two resumed after Polisario alleged that Morocco had breached the terms of the ceasefire. Towards the end of April this year, the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic confirmed in a statement that Ghali had been flown over to Spain for treatment for COVID-19 and medical surveillance, something later confirmed by Spanish authorities who stated that Ghali had been allowed to enter Spain on humanitarian grounds. This move angered Morocco though, causing them to, in mid-May, scale back border controls between Spanish territories and Morocco, leading some 8,000 migrants, including an estimated 2,000 minors, to cross from Morocco into Ceuta, and by extension, into Spain. Spain's Prime Minister was quick to admonish Morocco, stating that their actions were an act of defiance, and that the lack of border control by Morocco was not only a show of disrespect for Spain, but rather the entire European Union. Spain's Foreign Minister also confirmed that the stance of the Spanish government is that Morocco relaxing its border controls was a deliberate move in response to Ghali's admission into Spain. And the defence minister affirmed that the move was an act of aggression on the Spanish borders and of the borders of the European Union. Call it what you want, but I call it blackmail. The Moroccan Foreign Ministry subsequently confirmed that the move and the source of the crisis was due to the welcome that Madrid gave to the Polisario separatist militia leader under a false identity. Morocco's Human Rights Minister went even further in tone, writing on Facebook that Spain must know the price for discrediting Morocco is steep. Spain very quickly ramped up action, with Sanchez promising to proceed to immediately return, I repeat, immediately return, all those who have entered Ceuta and Melilla illegally. Spanish troops and police reinforcements were deployed along the border in a move to restore order. Of the 8,000 migrants that arrived, some 5,600 had been returned to Morocco by the 18th of May, which immediately set off alarm bells with human rights lawyers. Under Article 4 of Protocol 4 of the European Convention on Human Rights, the collective expulsion of aliens is prohibited, which says, in effect, you cannot deport a group of people without first assessing their individual circumstances and eligibility for asylum. Judith Sunderland of the Human Rights Watch highlighted that it seems very unlikely for Spain to have returned 5,600 people in the space of a matter of hours in a way that allows for any kind of individual assessment or careful examination of individual circumstances. It's contrary to Spanish law, it's contrary to European law, and it violates international human rights and refugee law. Reporters from the Associated Press echoed some of the concerns raised, confirming that Spanish military personnel and police officers were regularly using force or the threat of force to usher adults and children through a gate in the border back to Morocco. The EU as a whole, though, were firmly in support of Spanish actions. Commission President Ursula von der Leyen wrote on Twitter that the EU stands in solidarity with Ceuta and Spain, with her vice president going even further, saying that nobody can intimidate or blackmail the European Union. Ceuta is Europe. This border is a European border, and what happens there is not a problem for Madrid, but a problem for all. More recently, Sanchez has fleshed out his opposition to Morocco's move, saying that it's not acceptable for a government to say we will attack the borders, that we will open up the borders to let in 10,000 migrants in less than 48 hours, because of foreign policy disagreements. But nonetheless, he did express his desire for the return of a spirit of neighbourliness based on respect and confidence. Back in 2018, the border between the Spanish enclaves and Morocco was actually considered by the EU as a model for frontier control, although it was around the same time that the first warnings of such an incident were flagged. Morocco is really taking advantage of its strategic situation, and of course is getting many favours and a lot of money from the European Union. Then, when it wants to get something, it opens up the border and lets migrants enter Europe. But what do you think? Were Spain's actions right? Should either side be using human rights as pawns to be met with force? Or must an amicable solution come to the table? Also, did you know that Spain even had these territories? And should they hold on to them going forward? As always, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we release a new video. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this one possible. And if you want to see your name at the end of videos, then you too can back us on Patreon. The link to that's in the description.